She was on her hands and knees at 2:47 in the morning, scrubbing vomit off a nightclub bathroom floor in Newark, New Jersey, when her phone buzzed with a text message that would change everything. Her daughter, 17 years old and sleeping at home, had sent her a photo of an eviction notice taped to their apartment door. 30 days. They had 30 days to come up with $4,000 or they'd be living in their car again. And Gloria Vasquez, 45 years old, with aching knees and cracked hands that bled every single winter, looked at her reflection in that dirty bathroom mirror and made a decision that would eventually put her face on the cover of Forbes magazine. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Because to understand how a cleaning lady from the roughest part of Newark became the founder of Luminera Skincare, a company now valued at over $500 million, you need to understand where Gloria came from. You need to understand the depth of the hole she climbed out of. Gloria Maria Vasquez was born in 1973 in a small village outside of Guadalajara, Mexico, the youngest of 8 children. Her mother, Esperanza, was a curandera, a traditional healer who made remedies from local plants, flowers, and herbs. While other kids played in the streets, little Gloria sat beside her mother, watching her grind avocado pits into paste, mix honey with aloe vera, and create lotions from calendula and rosehip that women in the village would trade chickens and vegetables to receive. Mi abuela knew these recipes, her mother would tell her, and her abuela before her. This knowledge is your inheritance. Mija. Guard it. Gloria guarded it. She wrote everything down in a small notebook with a faded blue cover, filling page after page with her mother's formulations. She didn't know it then, but that tattered notebook would one day be worth more than gold. At 19, Gloria crossed the border into Texas with nothing but a backpack, $200 sewn into her bra, and that blue notebook. She spent 3 days in the desert. She watched a man die of dehydration just 10 feet away from her. She nearly gave up twice, but she kept walking because she'd made a promise to her mother, who was dying of cancer back in Mexico. She'd promised to build a life worthy of the sacrifice. Gloria made it to Houston, where she worked in a meatpacking plant for minimum wage. She sent every spare dollar home. Her mother died before Gloria could afford to fly back for the funeral. That grief never left her. It lived in her chest like a stone. She married young, at 22, to a man named Roberto who seemed kind at first. He wasn't. By the time their daughter Isabella was born in 1995, Gloria had learned to cover bruises with long sleeves and makeup. By the time Isabella turned 5, Gloria had learned to sleep with one eye open. By the time Isabella turned 8, Gloria had gathered enough courage to run. They fled to New Jersey in 2003, starting over with nothing for the second time in Gloria's life. She found work as a cleaning lady through a service called Sparkle Bright Cleaning Solutions, a company that paid her $7 an hour to scrub toilets in office buildings, restaurants, and nightclubs. The work was grueling. The hours were brutal, usually starting at 10 at night and ending at 6 in the morning. Her hands, exposed to industrial cleaning chemicals day after day, became a constant source of pain. They cracked. They bled. They aged 30 years in just 5. And this brings us back to that bathroom floor in November of 2018. Gloria, 45 years old, staring at an eviction notice on her phone screen, her daughter's terrified words appearing in text messages one after another. Mom, what are we going to do? Mom, I'm scared. Mom, please come home. Gloria finished her shift that night. She had no choice. If she walked out, she'd lose the job, and then they'd have $0 instead of just not enough dollars. She scrubbed that bathroom until it gleamed. She mopped the floors of the club until she could see her reflection in them. And the whole time her mind was racing. $4,000. Where was she going to find $4,000? She got home at 6:30 that morning to find Isabella sitting at their small kitchen table. Still awake, dark circles under her eyes. The eviction notice sat between them like a bomb. Gloria made coffee with hands that shook, and that's when she noticed Isabella staring at them. Mom, Isabella said quietly, your hands look really bad. Gloria looked down. Her knuckles were raw and red. The skin between her fingers had split open again. Her cuticles were ragged and bleeding. At 45 years old, Her hands looked like they belonged to a woman of 70. "It's the chemicals," Gloria said, sitting down heavily. "They eat right through the gloves." "Have you tried lotion?" Gloria almost laughed. Every lotion she'd ever tried from the dollar store burned like fire and did nothing. The expensive ones at the pharmacy were $8, $10, $15 a bottle, money she couldn't spare. So she'd simply stopped trying. She'd accepted that this was her life now, pain and cracked skin and blood on her cleaning rags. But something about Isabella's question sparked a memory. Her mother's voice, decades old but still clear as a bell, echoed in her mind. "This knowledge is your inheritance, Mija." Gloria stood up slowly and walked to her bedroom. She opened the closet, pushed aside old shoes and forgotten boxes, and pulled out a small suitcase she hadn't opened in years. Inside, wrapped in a plastic bag to protect it from moisture and time, was her mother's notebook. The blue cover was more faded now, the pages yellowed and fragile. But the formulas were still there. The recipes, the inheritance she'd guarded but never used. She carried the notebook back to the kitchen and set it on the table beside the eviction notice. "What's that?" Isabella asked. "Something my mother gave me," Gloria whispered. "Something I should have looked at a long time ago." That morning, while Isabella finally slept, Gloria Vasquez read through that notebook page by page. She found a recipe for a hand cream her mother used to make, a mixture of shea butter, coconut oil, local beeswax, and something her mother called the secret, a combination of rosehip oil and bakuchiol extract that had been passed down for generations. Gloria didn't have all the ingredients, but she had some. She had coconut oil from the grocery store, honey from the cabinet, and aloe vera from a small plant Isabella had been growing on the windowsill. She didn't have money, but she had knowledge. And for the first time in 20 years, she decided to use it. That afternoon, in that tiny Newark kitchen, with an eviction notice staring her in the face and less than $200 in her bank account, Gloria Vasquez made her first batch of hand cream. She mixed it in a cereal bowl with a wooden spoon. She scooped it into an old jelly jar. And when she rubbed it into her cracked, bleeding hands, something remarkable happened. It didn't burn. It didn't sting. Instead, for the first time in years, her hands felt relief. She didn't know it yet, but that jelly jar in her kitchen held the answer to everything. What she did next would either save her family or destroy the last bit of hope she had left, and the choice she made would eventually be studied in business schools from Harvard to Stanford. But first, she had to survive the next 30 days, and what happened on day 14 would bring her to her knees in a way she never expected. She was a cleaning lady at 45. How she built a $500 million skincare empire from her kitchen, Part 2. If you haven't watched Part 1, go back now because what I'm about to tell you will hit differently when you understand just how far this woman had fallen before she rose. When we left off, Maria Santos was standing in her tiny kitchen at 2 a.m., her hands raw and cracked from years of cleaning chemicals, staring at a jar of homemade cream that had just healed her daughter's severe eczema in 3 weeks. Something the doctors said was impossible without steroids. But here's what I didn't tell you. That same week, Maria received an eviction notice. She was 2 months behind on rent. Her car had been repossessed. And her ex-husband, the man who had drained their savings and disappeared, had just filed for bankruptcy, which meant the child support she was counting on vanished into thin air. At 45 years old, Maria Santos had exactly $47 in her bank account, a jar of homemade cream, and 2 daughters who were counting on her to figure it out. Most people would have given up right there. Most people would have taken that eviction notice as the final sign that life had beaten them. But Maria did something that changed everything. She got angry, not the destructive kind of anger, the kind of anger that burns so hot it becomes fuel. The kind of anger that makes you look at your circumstances and say, "No, this is not how my story ends." The next morning, Maria walked into the office of her biggest cleaning client, a woman named Dorothy Chun who owned a chain of high-end spas across the city. Maria had been cleaning